In the world of Danganronpa, we have 18 cases. Some are highly praised, others not so much. But even these cases get some love. That being said, there's one case in the series that I feel like does not get the recognition it deserves. Even case 3s have their fans, but I honestly don't know if anyone likes this case because no one talks about it. This case that I'm talking about is Danganronpa 2, Case 1. I might be wrong, but I really don't hear anyone talk about this case, and for most of the people I've talked to, this case is considered to be a normal opening case, and some people even hate it because it's very long for an opening case. It's weird because Danganronpa 2 is my least favorite game out of the main 3, so when I heard that it was the favorite of the series, I was interested to hear why. So I did some digging on forums, and a common opinion I've heard was that Danganronpa 2's first half is kinda meh, but the second half is like the pinnacle of the Danganronpa franchise. This just confused me more because the beginning of Danganronpa 2 is actually one of my favorite parts of the game. In fact, I might like the first half more than the second half. One of the main contributors to this is the opening case. Not only is it one of my favorite cases in DR2, but it's my favorite opening case in the series. Yes, even more than V3's opening case. Today, I'm going to share why I think this case is underrated and deserves more recognition. First, let's start with the characters. This case makes use of the fact that there's a bunch of characters alive. After all, the cast is only going to get smaller from this point on, so why not use as many of them as possible? One way the characters are used are their talents. Mahiru uses her photography, which later becomes evidence since we know where everyone is positioned before the blackout. Then we got Ibuki using her hearing skills as the ultimate musician. Basically, she could pick up on what everyone said during the blackout and remember it word for word. We also have Mikon performing an autopsy as the ultimate nurse. More characters also give us more red herrings. Just to list a few of these red herrings, we got the suspicious line from Kazuichi when he says he's moving along the wall. Then there's this truth bullet that throws sauce on Peko. This one that throws sauce at Fuyuhiko. And again, everyone just feels involved in this case. We have Gundam going through the floorboards. Perhaps some people will find that suspicious. Speaking of the characters, I think it's important to talk about the culprit, Teru Hanamura. First of all, I love his breakdown with him speaking in his normal voice when he gets angry. I honestly feel like Danganronpa culprits need better breakdowns, but Teru easily has one of the better ones in the series. I also like how his motive is simply to escape and his lost memories. It's simple, but it's effective. He wanted to return home to support his ill mother, but he also wanted to know what happened to her since there could be years worth of memories taken away. Yes, I know there's Nagito as well, but we'll talk about him a bit later. Another thing I really like about this case is the complexity. For an opening case, there's a lot going on. It wasn't easy to piece together what happened. There were a few pieces of evidence that confused me, and I didn't really know how they played a part in the case. One example is the fire door. I didn't really understand how it was used until they got to that part in the trial. This case also looks confusing when you initially see the placement of the body and the evidence near the body. It looked like Byakuya was stabbed under the floor, but then there's a knife above the floor, so what really happened here? Then Mikon reveals the nature of the real murder weapon, and at this point, it seems impossible for a person to have committed this crime, until you consider the possibility that there are two people at work here. Also, I like how Teru isn't too obvious as the culprit. Yeah, his appearance at the dining hall is strange, but the game uses some misdirection with a blackout and everyone panicking to throw your eyes off Teru. Compare this to the first case of DR1, where they literally spell out who the killer is. And I think it's safe to say that this is a big improvement. Another thing I like is that you don't get the whole story in this case. In most cases, you get to explore everything before you get to the trial. In this case, you don't get to go under the floor during the investigation, and thus, you don't know that the storage room is the only way to go under the floor. Without this piece of the puzzle, it makes the player more unsure of what really happened here. I also like how the cast explores every possible lead. I know some people that don't like this case that much because of its length, and feel like the cast could have gotten to the final result much faster than they really did, but I beg to differ. The cast tried to find any lead they could, and sometimes this just led to a dead end. One example is Pecco's diarrhea. They tried to find out who was in the bathroom. They figured it out, it was Pecco, and they also figured out the dishes could not have had any laxatives in them because Akane was completely fine after eating the food. Yes, this didn't go anywhere, but the cast had their lives on the line, so it's good to explore every possibility before they make their decision. Now, this case definitely isn't perfect. In fact, there are two big flaws in this case, and both of these are auditory. One, Byakuya doesn't scream or make any type of noise when he's repeatedly getting stabbed. You'd expect to hear the stabbing, since the autopsy says Byakuya was stabbed 10 times, and you'd assume he'd make some type of noise if he's in this much pain. But no, somehow he dies in silence. Something else we have to talk about is the new minigames. For the most part, I think these are actually good minigames. My favorite addition is definitely the agree bullet mechanic. It just expands the fun of the regular debates, and it also makes the cast seem more smart. Like in the first game, it's kind of sad that they always mess up their arguments, and you have to refute them every single time. But in this game, guess what? Sometimes they actually get the answer right, which feels more realistic and just adds another layer to the non-stop debates. Then we have the improved Hangman's Gambit, and I don't think it's as bad as most people make it out to be. And it's especially not that bad in the first case. It's slow enough to the point where you can get the hang of it. The only problem is the explanation. To be fair, all the explanations for minigames in Danganronpa are bad, and this one is no exception. Rebuttal Showdown is pretty good in this case as well. Again, the explanation is pretty confusing, but once you start playing, it's not too bad. I like the concept. It's a little 1v1 against another character. The only weird thing is you don't get time to read the words at all. Like you just have to spam your blade before they can complete what they're saying, and all of a sudden you have to hit a weak spot. The comic book section is still amazing, and last, and also the least, is Panic Talk Action. I just don't like this one. I really don't know what else to say. The writing in this case is phenomenal. The case doesn't take the fastest route to solving the murder, but the case mostly does revolve around solving the murder. There's barely any fluff moments where nothing happens. The only time they're really not focusing on the evidence is Nagito's big reveal with the swirly eyes, but this is easily one of the best moments of the case, if not the very best moment. Before this moment, Nagito was just this guy we were always hanging out with. So this change really just made his character much more interesting, and seeing everyone react to Nagito's insanity is very enjoyable. But there are also smaller moments in the case with good writing. One part is where they hint at Pecco's and Fuyuhiko's relationship, since Fuyuhiko shows concern for Pecco when she said she wasn't feeling well. They also hint at their relationship in the daily life section, but this just adds to it. The characters are also written very well. We have Mahiru and Fuyuhiko butting heads with each other, and everyone else for that matter. This also builds up what happens in chapter 2, but also just makes the trial more enjoyable. So yeah, that's all I have to say about the case. This might have been a very short video, but honestly, I don't think it has to be any longer. Since this case was carried out by 2 people, this makes the case very complex, and I also like how there's more red herrings in this case. The case probably had more red herrings than most of the DR1 cases. It had the Nagito reveal. They killed off the character building the most suspense and mystery. I mean, if you think about it, Byakuya was one of the main mysteries at the start of Danganronpa 2. We were wondering, is this game going to be a sequel, a prequel? What's happening here? Killing him off right there is really good because it makes us wonder even more. And overall, just fun character dynamics to start us off. I also really enjoy the fact that this is a murder in the dark. I don't know, I just love that concept. You know, it's like Among Us when the lights are turned off and someone gets killed. it's like that. It just builds up a lot of suspense, and I just really like the concept of it. But yeah, what do you guys think about this first chapter from DR1? Was it one of your favorites? Is it like a neutral case? One of your least favorites? I don't really know what you guys think, so comment it down below, and I'll see you guys next time.